The Washington Post, doing a story about O'Keefe, is preaching to the choir. Journalists who are reading this are going, yay, journalism worked. And then everyone else who had no idea who James O'Keefe is learning about James O'Keefe because the Washington Post has a huge story about him now. James O'Keefe versus the Washington Post. Truly, some of the greatest reality television one could hope for, but it's not reality television, it's reality, and it's really stupid on both sides, I've gotta say. Now, as the story goes, a woman approached the Washington Post with an accusation that Roy Moore had impregnated her a long time ago and she had to get an abortion. The Washington Post did their legwork, vetted this woman, and found the story was likely not true. They found a GoFundMe that apparently showed someone with the same name raising money to move to New York to join the conservative media movement. They claim to have been fired or left their mortgage work, which fits with what this woman was claiming she had been doing. Now, the Washington Post then says they saw this woman entering the office of James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe was posting videos talking about how the Washington Post had been sitting outside of their office for some time, and he was saying this is them trying to flip the narrative. They're trying to flip the sting back onto James O'Keefe because Project Veritas has been doing an undercover investigation into the Washington Post and was about to release some damning information. Over the past year, Veritas has been doing American Pravda, their latest series, where they've had undercover recordings of employees at various news organizations. Some of them have been relatively bad, but some of them have been kind of, not really much there. In this instance, it looks like we have a bout between the left and the right, Washington Post, the mainstream media, and Project Veritas, conservative alternative media. But what ended up happening? It looks like, for the most part, the videos released by Project Veritas so far don't really show anything. Yes, we're hearing from some employees that Jeff Bezos pushed the slogan, "Democracy dies in darkness," which I don't think is that big of a deal in my opinion. And we're also hearing from a national security correspondent that they have a news division that tries to be critical but fair, and they have an editorial division that is over the top focusing on Trump. We've heard from one of their employees that they've thought about how if Trump disappeared, their revenues, their traffic would drop by 40% overnight. Not too controversial. In fact, in some instances, it really makes them look pretty good. Veritas interviewing one of the reporters saying that they try to be critical of the BS, but also try to say when Trump does well, when he does good things, but just that they view there being more bad things. He talks about how the editorial department is over the top, targeting Trump, which is fair, but at the same time, we understand, look, when it comes to news outlets, editorial departments are opinion and analysis, and yeah, they're gonna have a point of view. So what have we learned? Not a whole lot. It's interesting to see that the Washington Post takes this position. I'm not the biggest fan of the Washington Post, but I gotta admit, the stuff that they're revealing about Washington Post and the Washington Post doing the legwork and turning the tables on O'Keefe, hey, props where props are due. They busted the sting, they did the groundwork, and they didn't fall for any tricks. To an extent, some of their employees did. Now, there's a few things that I think are important. For one, James O'Keefe did not confirm that this woman worked for Veritas. There is the possibility that the reason the woman went to their office was because she's shopping around the story. Apparently, she went to the Washington Post saying, here's a story I have about Roy Moore, and then she goes to other media outlets for the same thing. It is a possibility. In my opinion, I think it's slim, right? Allegedly, she posted that she was taking a job in conservative media, to which, in an interview with the Washington Post, she did say that she posted this, so we can only assume that it is true. And then she's seen at the Veritas office. So, to me, it seems like she definitely works for James O'Keefe, but I think it's fair to say we can't confirm that. Just, I think beyond a reasonable doubt, it is very likely this woman was a part of a sting of some sort. And if that's true, pretending to be a victim of sexual assault it's a bit gross. You have women who are making accusations against Roy Moore, and that warrants an investigation. It's been a long time, so it's going to be hard to suss out. But putting forth a fake operative to make up a false accusation against Roy Moore could only serve to discredit those who might have actual grievances against the man. So that is stepping over the bounds of my personal ethics. But Keep in mind, ethics are, for the most part, subjective. Some people think that what Project Veritas does with misrepresenting themselves to go undercover is totally fine, and journalists at the Washington Post think that misrepresenting yourself is wrong. You shouldn't do it. So stepping outside of moral outrage, here's my take. I don't think James O'Keefe did a very good job of this. If this woman in fact did work for him, tons of amateur mistakes, okay? Posting to social media, you're gonna go to New York and work for some conservative media outlet to combat the MSM. The whole thing was poorly vetted, poorly sorted out, and they didn't really uncover a whole lot of information yet. It is my understanding Veritas is claiming they have more videos to come, so we'll see what happens. But at this time, I just think we're gonna see people who like James O'Keefe, who support conservative movements or Project Veritas, just agreeing with them and negatively going after the Washington Post. And in the same exact scenario, but inverted, we're going to have those who hate James O'Keefe siding with the Washington Post, taking everything they say to be law. Okay, let's keep in mind, the Washington Post has put out fake news in the past. There's a story where they refused to correct a story about James O'Keefe. They refused to correct it. Ultimately, they did correct it, though. The writer refused to correct it. And let's not forget when Dave Weigel wrote an absolutely fake news story about Kim.com, to which instead of issuing a correction and coming out and saying, hey, we need to pull this one back because people are being misled by it, he just went in and changed it around, quietly swept under the rug, and that was the end of it. There was no great apology. There was no editorial note in the piece about the changes they made, simply just some quick revisions and then don't tell anybody, right? You know why I'm talking about this? Because a lot of people are talking about this. Project Veritas was trending the other day. They didn't get a whole lot of traffic to their videos. The Washington Post story is being rewritten and shared far and wide, saying James O'Keefe was busted. But keep in mind, I'm fairly certain the Washington Post did not confirm this woman worked for O'Keefe, simply that they believe beyond a reasonable doubt that to be the case because of some inconsistencies, the posts she made, and seeing her at the office. Other news outlets, however, are reporting it definitively, which can be dangerous. Keep in mind, if you're not a fan of James O'Keefe, he uses sly, however you want to define it, subversive tactics to call people out. And with all these news outlets now definitively reporting this woman works for him, there is the possibility they could get called out too if it turns out not to be true. The Washington Post was careful on this. But more importantly, this whole story just shows how stupid our political climate is. So the Washington Post had a fake story. Someone came into their office and tried to feed him a bad story. So what did they do? They filmed it and made a big stink about it. What? Who cares? How many? I get tons of people coming out with fake stories all the time. I don't make videos about them. Oh, but this is tribal. It's visceral, this anger these journalists have because James O'Keefe has recorded people undercover, has pissed them off. So certainly they would love to put out a piece saying, haha, we caught James O'Keefe. But I don't know, man. Do I care that the Washington Post caught James O'Keefe trying to commit an undercover sting? No. All he's proven is that the Washington Post does their job. I don't understand how this is supposed to make James O'Keefe look bad, in a sense. I mean, yeah, the undercover operative did a bad job, assuming she worked for O'Keefe, but the Washington Post coming out and saying, hey guys, we did the bare minimum of what we're supposed to do, is not impressive to me in the least bit. And it in no way excuses their past behavior of putting out a couple fake news stories to which I have witnessed. There's a phenomenon that I've talked about called the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. It's something I've mentioned in the past. And it's where you're reading a newspaper, you're reading a website, and you see a story in which you are the expert and say, whoa, that is totally fake news. But then you click the next link, you turn the page, and there's a story in which you are not an expert, and you just believe it to be true. In my case, I have witnessed the Washington Post on more than one occasion, not just writing fake news, but refusing to correct fake news. So I am not going to succumb to the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. I'm going to say, okay, their credibility to me is less than chance. I don't think that they do a particularly good job because I have witnessed them doing a bad job. Now that doesn't mean that they're wrong all the time or that there isn't reason to believe when they write a story. Certainly, as a news organization, they have some benefit of the doubt on their side. But I'm gonna look at everything they do with a critical eye. And when I see them do a story like this, hey guys, guess what? We did the bare minimum of what we're supposed to do, and it turns out this wasn't a real story. Congratulations? Am I supposed to congratulate you for doing the bare minimum? No, I mean, yeah, you caught a sting operation, but so what? Who cares? Who cares about any of this? Why am I talking about this? James O'Keefe puts out his videos where we learn that the Washington Post is heavily editorially against Donald Trump. Sure, I think we all knew that. I think even people who don't like Donald Trump know that. And then the Washington Post goes, hey guys, guess what? We did our jobs and caught somebody who was giving us fake news. Yeah, so what? I don't know. People just want to care because it's their side winning against the other side. You know, the New York Times did a profile on a neo-Nazi, whatever they call it, and now you've got the left screaming that the New York Times is normalizing this kind of white supremacy, racism, and the New York Times has had to issue essentially two apologies for writing this piece because the audience didn't like it. So now we have the left, the supporters of the mainstream journalism, attacking the New York Times for profiling a neo-Nazi, and then you have them praising the Washington Post for doing what they are supposed to do, fact-checking an individual who claims they had a story. These are people on all sides who misrepresent stats, who misrepresent quotes, take quotes out of context or out of the time frame in which they were posted, and then just accuse the other of being wrong or being bad, when in reality, everybody is just being tribal. The people who like O'Keefe are supporting O'Keefe. The people who don't like O'Keefe are not supporting O'Keefe. The people who don't like the right are accusing the New York Times of putting out a puff piece protecting white supremacy. And this is politics today. Reality TV, essentially. I think the New York Times profiling Nazi matters very little. It matters to an extent, right? They're trying to show the banality of evil, that even though you view this person as detestable, he's somebody who goes to the grocery store and buys cereal with his wife and pets his cats when he comes home. And I think humanization is really important. It helps you understand that we're not us versus them. We're just all people who have extreme opinions one way or the other, or we oppose certain people one way or the other. When we start to realize that everyone is human, we can better understand their motives, their emotions, why they're doing the things they're doing. But instead, everyone just wants to get tribal and say, my side won this fight, oh my god, you're the other side. I don't care for either side. I think what James O'Keefe put out is nothing burger. And maybe he'll come out with something in the next few days or whatever. I don't know what his investigation is going to uncover. And I think the Washington Post came out and said, hey guys, we did our job. And I'm like, okay, and? But the people who just want to be tribal are going to go, woo, the Washington Post, haha, and all the journalists are singing and clapping and cheering themselves on for having done their jobs. And I'm just like, oh, okay, great, congratulations, you did what you were supposed to do. All in all, I think this matters very little. And the only people who think it matters are the tribalists, the people who are like, my side won, how can you not see that this is so important and what James O'Keefe is doing is wrong? Sure, that's your opinion. And you've got people saying, but the Washington Post has published fake news. James O'Keefe is just doing his best. Yes, sure, whatever. Tribalism, whatever. I don't care. This is stupid reality TV drama between two organizations trying to essentially expose each other. And it's not going to stop here. You know, this piece by the Washington Post isn't going to do anything but benefit James O'Keefe, okay? Can we just end with that? The Washington Post, doing this story about O'Keefe, is preaching to the choir. Journalists who are reading this are going, yay, journalism worked. And then everyone else who had no idea who James O'Keefe is learning about James O'Keefe because the Washington Post has a huge story about him now. So congratulations. There's no such thing as bad PR. Reality TV drama, as I said. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I could rant about this for 800 years. We'll keep the conversation going. If you want to support my work, you can go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like. Give nothing at all. My videos are always free and available every day at 4 p.m. And check out my second channel in the description below because I'll be posting more commentary, criticism, irreverent content there. So stay tuned for that. But yes, subscribe. And new videos every day at 4 p.m. I'll see you all tomorrow.